What is up, my guys, and welcome back to the channel. Yes, it is patch note time. I don't normally do patch notes, but there were a lot in this patch note video recently. I mean, 3 hours for a lot of information. What is relevant, what is not when it comes to the big season change that's coming up here very shortly. I got you. I'm gonna break it down for you very quickly. That way that you can watch maybe 10-15 minutes, call it a day, and then move on. And if you want to see more information, especially like the patch note video itself, the devs did a very good job with pacing. So it's really not too hard to watch, but 3 hours again is a long time for some people. So I will leave the link to that down below if you're interested in watching it. Other than that, let's just jump into it and let's talk about what they are changing for season 5. So the first thing that they really talked about that I thought was interesting and relevant to know, ranked entry cost is going to be changed by 2 to 3 points. There's going to be a stronger soft reset. So when you start ranking, if you don't know anything about ranked, when you place somewhere one season, so let's say I got gold this season, next season there would usually be a soft reset, which means that I would drop down into maybe the same division, just a tier below. So gold 3, I would go down to silver 3. This time they said that there's going to be a stronger soft reset. So it's very possible that you could have landed in gold 2 and you will be dropped all the way down to silver 4 or even bronze 1. I'm not saying that those are the numbers specifically. I'm just saying be prepared for a stronger grind. They even said specifically that they wanted to make ranking a little bit harder to climb in. So definitely be prepared for that. They're also adding a new rank division. So in between diamond and mithril, we're going to have the meteorite rank, which is going to be now placed at 6,800 RP to 7,300 RP. And I don't care really about this. I think it's good to add more divisions. I feel like they're following a lot of League's formula though, because, you know, League added that Emerald division, and there's quite a few patch notes later on that are very akin to what League has done. And I don't know if necessarily they're the best choices, but in this regard, I do not care. I think that another division would be great. They did talk about how they didn't know how this was going to affect where people are placed and that they're going to have to tweak it over the coming season. They also said that probably mid-season they would have a little bit more of a better idea of how well or how effective meteorite rank is. So keep an eye out for that one, my high elo players. They also brought up in regards to season 6, so they're getting a little ahead of themselves, but it's good to bring it up to kind of see how people feel about it. They're talking about a possible emblem tournament. Only pre-made ranking would be available in it, and it was very similar to Clash from League of Legends, and it would have its own ranking system that would be completely different from your regular, you know, rank placement. I believe they said that it would be on a scale of F to triple S. Very little information was kind of given out about it. They are worried about it, obviously, because by adding another kind of game mode when the player base is still relatively small, you run into the problem as to whether or not your traditional ranked mode will falter because so many people will want to play the pre-made Clash mode with their friends. So that is kind of interesting. So I kind of added it in there. I know that has nothing to do with what's going on next week, but definitely something interesting that piqued my interest, and pretty much all the updates that we have for ranked for season 5 and potentially season 6. There are a lot of character reworks that are happening. Some are good, some are awful. Don't even talk to me about the Laura changes. I don't want to hear it. One of the big things that they're changing is Hart. Hart now is going to have Kindred ult essentially when she ults. Everybody in it will stay alive. You cannot drop below 0. And there is a little bit of a heal at the end. They are removing her evolution system, but they're keeping some of the evolution effects for Hart's skills. Her passive now will give 2 additional sound waves. Her Q can be used an additional time even without the evolution. W and R support mechanics will now be removed, and her E dash will now be 2 charges, but that has an improved ranged as well. There was a brief talk about Shoichi, but really they were talking about how they needed this next season to see whether or not his prior rework was effective or not effective, and if they need to tweak him more, they will touch his ult. Barbara has a lot of big changes going on. You can now raise your dongers because she's basically Heimerdinger. She has a new passive. She can now craft her equipment faster, and her next basic attack is empowered every few seconds. She can now deploy 2 sentry guns, which can trigger on hits effect as well. And while she is ulting, she can deploy a 3rd turret. Her W lasers are bigger and longer when enhanced with her ultimate, but relatively unchanged other than that. Barbara's E is now completely different. Instead of it being, you know, the magnetic storm that she had before, now she has a bomb that she throws at people, and if you hit them in the center of it, it will stun them. Very similar to Heimerdinger E, obviously, but her magnetic storm is not gone. When she empowers her E with her ultimate and she throws it, it will leave behind that magnetic storm, which will slow and damage enemies while they stand in it. So if you are excited for these changes, good for you. I personally am excited to see more of a turret character. I wish they had done something a little different with it, but I am excited to see it. The lore changes are absolutely massive. So they have removed her throw gauge completely. Instead, your next basic auto attack is empowered after using a skill. That's kind of her new passive. Her Q now is what her dash was in combination to her lashing her whips out forward. Now she will land her Q and you must press Q again to activate her dash. Her calling card no longer slows or steals defenses from her enemies. Instead, it does a heal. Her E is now what her old ult was. So now you can pull, but you can only pull yourself to walls. You cannot pull people any longer. So you will grapple to a wall and then you can hop over it to land on people. And her ultimate now is an AoE pull in. So a giant circle will kind of show up at her feet and it will knock everybody back towards Laura. It's very similar to Nyla's ultimate from League of Legends. So now we're going to talk about kind of the smaller reworks that they did. I don't know if I would necessarily call them reworks. They were just kind of quality of life changes, I feel, for characters. Starting with Daniel. Daniel's ultimate can now be used without landing his W skill. If you want to maximize your damage, you still need to land your W before ulting, but his ult also no longer deals damage based off of remaining health, so you can ult those higher health targets, and his W also pops much faster now. Jenny's passive has now been tweaked a little bit so that teammates cannot heal her when it activates. She can heal herself, but no longer will she be able to be aided by her teammates. She is now truly untargetable. The change to Charlotte is that when she shields somebody else, she will also shield herself, but the shields themselves will be smaller. They will be baby shields in comparison, as far as I understand. The guy even said it might be garbage. It sounds kind of garbage, but we will see how it goes later on. They're also giving her passive scaling skill amp, so you have more incentive to level it early. Zahir, you are no longer at the mercy of landing all of your skill shots. He's now going to get passive W stacks over time, which if you play Zahir, you know that that's basically all of his damage. So that's really cool to see. I love and hate the changes to Leanne. Her Ghost Q now has a little bit of a delay when you cast it, which allows people to slip away from it a little bit easier, which I think is totally necessary. That character can be so oppressive and it's very, very hard to dodge her Ghost Q. The other side of it, now when she shifts into Ghost form, she will get a little bit of health regained to her. So you could almost kill her in human form and then she pops into Ghost form and she will have a little bit more health in order to sustain her. Bernice now can enjoy attack range boosts. They were very excited about this, I could tell, because you mentioned that there was like some sort of spaghetti coating that was kind of stopping them from being able to do this before. But now he can have a long range shotgun, which I think is really cool. And I think is actually necessary for Bernice, especially with Katya coming out. There's a lot of poke now, and Bernice, I feel, has a hard time fighting against those really long range attackers. And it's kind of made him fall into obscurity in my mind, at least in my experience of playing games recently. So I'm really happy to see this for this character. I'm glad to see that he will once again become relevant. That is it for all the character changes. Now we're going to talk about the map changes that they made, especially our introduction of their new mascot, Lumi. Lumi is actually really, really cool. There's a lot of things that they've added with Lumi. He will wander around the island and it will actively approach test subjects, and you can purchase from him himself. You can buy one item off of the Lumi shop before he zooms off. He has Combat Epinephrine, which is a permanent move speed buff. He sells RNG legendary materials, so like your Tree of Life, your Mithril, and it's all going to be at a discounted rate. I also saw that they had campfires available from Lumi, which I think is actually huge because I can't tell you how many times late games I've wanted to call in a campfire and you physically can't actually, which sucks because late game is usually when I need food because I fought 3 teams in a row and all of the campfires are out. So very, very cool to see that. And one of the biggest things about Lumi is that you can actually revive your teammates at Lumi as well. But the big kicker is that you can revive them even after day 5, which makes Lumi even more impressive and more viable when it comes to the late game. I think that this is awesome. I always think that in games like this, you just need to add more objectives if you want to stir the pot and make the game more interesting, and this definitely is a smart way to go about it. He's cute, he has a lot going on, and you can also fight Lumi. So Lumi's original purpose was to actually go around the different credit kiosks and to collect credits from them, and once Lumi has collected enough credits, I believe he will turn red or some sort of indicator will pop up, which will indicate to you that you can now fight Lumi and take his money from him, which I'm sure sure some people are very excited for. The devs did make it very clear that it is a substantial amount of money, so it's actually something you really want to be working towards capitalizing on when it is available. So I'm really excited to see how combat is going to work around Lumi and how many people are going to be fighting over this cute little guy. The next thing that they're going to be adding are called gadgets. Gadgets are now going to be new consumable items that you can only hold one of. So if you want to pick up another one, you're going to have to discard your old one. There are 3 of them. The first one is called the remote kiosk that can be obtained from wild animals. Instead of the purple light that you normally see when they drop your shinies, it will be blue. And Lumi will sell them as well. But essentially it allows you to remotely purchase one item from a kiosk. You have 30 seconds after you've activated it to make your purchase, if I understood it correctly. The other 2 gadgets are a flare gun. There is a red one and a blue one. They essentially do the same thing where you can call in a red box. You can obtain these from purple boxes after night 3. But with the red flare, it takes 45 seconds for the box to drop at your location, but it's also going to ping your location on the map while you are waiting for the box to drop. So you will be effectively a beacon on the map for other people to come and try to attack you to steal your upcoming resources. The blue flare, however, will not be at your targeted location. Instead, you can choose where you want the box to drop. They made a point to say that they are trying to phase out traps because they feel like it's an outdated kind of concept, and they are instead going to be implementing new gadgets as the seasons go on. All right, now we're going to talk about the cubes. So the cubes are a alternative objective that are temporary, that if you stand on them, you can pick them up. They have very fancy names to them. I am just going to go off of color because I am basic. There are some cubes that affect only the individual that picks it up, and then there are other cubes that can affect your whole team. We are going to start with the individual cubes. For the red cube, it's going to apply bleed on autos. The purple cube will give you CDR and skill amp, and the green cube will give you HP regen based on your max HP. All of them sound pretty decent. Sounds like if you're playing a specific character, you're definitely going to try to lean towards a certain one. Now, the ones that I'm really excited for, the ones that are going to affect your whole team, and I think they'll actually be worth contesting, and that would be both the yellow and blue cube. So the blue cube gives you attack speed and movement speed, which is decent, right? But the yellow cube can give you a credits gain increase, and I really think that that's going to be one to prioritize, especially if you're in an area or about to go to an area that's very farming heavy, especially thinking about the new changes that they've made to restricted zones, which I will talk about in a second. If you were to grab a yellow cube and then go into one of these areas that is very farming dense, you could potentially make a killing off of it, which could boost you further ahead, which could be awesome. So time will tell how useful the cubes actually are, but so far I really like them. All right, so the last thing I wanted to talk about actually is the restricted areas and what they're doing with them. Now there are going to be certain restricted areas that will reopen again, which sounds pretty crazy, and to be honest, I actually think it's a really good system that they're going to be putting in place. When the restricted areas reopen, all of the animals will respawn in that zone, which is excellent. The dev even went as far as to say that while they were doing their playtesting of it, there were a lot of teams that were meeting up in these areas to fight over these resources. It's pretty much guaranteed farm if you can win the zone. I'm curious to see how it's really implemented. Once we get into the later game, it's a lot of just farm, but this will actually incite people to kind of meet up and fight, which is great. It's going to change up the pace, I think, of late game depending on how they do it. So regular mobs will respawn 5 seconds after these zones are activated again, and the mutant mobs will take a little bit longer to respawn. And that is it, my guys. Of course, that wasn't everything that was in the patch video. I cannot condense 3 hours into 15 minutes. It's just not possible. I could maybe do 45 minutes or something, but I figured that this would be the key things that if you are interested in knowing the big changes of what's going to be happening within the next patch or so, here you go. Here's the information for you, and hopefully that was helpful for you. And if you are interested in watching the original video, again, I have it linked down in the description below. If you are somebody that is new to Eternal Return and you are trying to find a place to call home in regards to finding buddies to play with and where you can hang out, I actually have a Discord specifically for that. It is called Eternal Connections, and it is for new players and veteran players alike. If you join, you can possibly solve the mystery as to why they call me Big Papa. I stream every Friday from 6 to 10ish, so if you want to join me over there, I usually play Eternal Return. Sometimes I might mix it up, but right now it's a lot of Eternal Return. I also have a lot of information for brand new players, so if you are a new player and you're looking for more information, feel free to check out my playlists and stuff like that. I have a lot of guides, and I have even more stuff coming out, so if you want to stick around, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Give me a like, maybe leave a comment. Anything helps right now with the algorithm, and yeah, that's it. Bye!